Welcome to another episode of Complete Podcast where we talk all things teaching, the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm joined here again with I'm not even going to say special guest, I'm going to say Kevin. Great to have you on again.
Thank you for having me again.
This episode is going to focus on the hot topic that's on every teacher's lips. Most teachers will be talking about this, have spoken about this, and that is work-life balance.
And managing workload.
Managing workload. I think most teachers would agree that the workload over the last decade or so, even the last couple of years, has significantly increased. What are your thoughts on that?
All I can say is from my experience, right? I usually find that by the start of the term, I'm getting my work done and I'm going home. I still have energy after getting home. In the morning, I do my training. But by the middle term or the end of the term or the end of the year, my training just ceased.
Sustainability.
It's gone. And I get probably bogged down by stress, workload, whatever it is. It gets really bad. I don't know if anyone relates to this. My routine has been wake up, go to work, come home, and I fall straight to sleep. I'm so tired, I fall straight to sleep.
And how old are you?
I'm 25.
Do you have any kids?
No.
Are you single?
Yes.
Can you imagine what that would be like for someone like myself who's older? I'm not going to say the age. With 3 kids, with my wife who also works full time.
Yeah, so I don't know, because I go home and I nap from, let's say, 4:30, 5 o'clock for about 3 hours, and I wake up, play games, whatever it is, and go back to bed. So I actually have no idea how you do it.
I don't even know how I do it. I honestly don't. I think the sad reality is my brain is now programmed to work constantly to not only be a teacher, but a content creator, and most importantly, a father and husband.
Yeah.
To me, that's been the biggest challenge of teaching is I can't give 100% to all of those. I have to pick and choose how much of a percentage of an effort I give to certain elements of my life, whether it's teaching, whether it's content creating, or being, in my opinion, not in my opinion, I think in everyone's opinion, the most important thing is being a father.
And I think you're missing one as well. Health. Looking after your health.
So workload is an issue because it's no longer. When I started teaching, I got married only a couple of years into my I've been married for over 10 years now. I had my first child in 2019 at the beginning of. Even before I had children, 2017, 18, I found that I had to give a little bit more to teaching and a lot less to my home life and my physical health because the expectations had grown.
Right.
Over the last 2 to 3 years, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, I'm actually ashamed of myself for giving 100% to teaching, 100% to making videos for teaching to help teachers, because that's pretty much become my whole identity, and a lot less effort and time into my own children and my life with my wife.
Wow.
And I'm going to be very honest, I'm fed up with it.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm fed up with it is because there are so many things in the day-to-day runnings of a teacher's life that don't need to be there.
I absolutely agree.
So many things that you could easily eradicate from teaching, but for whatever reason are still there. And I know a lot of teachers would agree to this because I know a lot of my following are parents themselves, and they tell me how. And I made a video about this, and to me, it is one of the hardest hitting video I've ever made. Is why is it that I give 100% to the students in my classroom, but when I get home, my children get about 10 to 15% of who I am because of the workload at school.
So how do you manage that?
I'm managing it by giving 90% to school and 10% at home. That's
so
how
just
I'm
giving a bit more.
I'm giving a lot more to teaching than I am to my own children. That's how I'm managing that.
Wow.
And that's huge. And to be honest with you, I don't want that anymore.
No.
I don't think that's fair. I've got 3 beautiful kids, an amazing wife who works incredibly hard. Why is it fair that I'm essentially not only raising 3 gorgeous children, but 30 other children because certain workloads have been put in place where I have to? Why?
It's interesting that you're saying this because I actually deem you as someone who does manage workload very, very well. And the reason why I say that is because I remember distinctly during prac when I was in your class, one of the first things you said to me, I do believe it was on the first day, you actually asked me, how long are you planning to do work after you go home? And then throughout the week, you would message me at about 6:30, 7:30, might still be programming for the lesson the next day. And you'll be catching me in the right moment saying, you better not be doing any work. And I know that you prioritize, and you would actually say to me, I actually leave at 3:30. I was like, what? What is this teacher doing leaving at 3:30? But what I didn't realize was that you actually showed up to school at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Not many people. The cleaners are when I get to school, it is still pitch black.
Yeah.
And I started doing this when I had kids, because before having kids, I was leaving work, and it was easy to leave work at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. It's easier because you don't have children. You go home, the house is clean. You just got to make dinner for one person. But after having kids, I realized that I need to get as much productivity done at the start of the day.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have time after school hours. I knew that at 3:30, I've got to go pick up kids, and I've got So my youngest daughter, she's in daycare. She turns 3 soon. Last year, my son was in preschool, and my eldest daughter was at school. 3 different locations, and they're all quite far from each other.
Yep.
So one was at the in-laws at some days, one was at daycare, one horrendous. So I had to start leaving a lot earlier so that I could pick them up, get them bathed, get my daughter to do her homework, make dinner.
Wow.
Get them ready for bed, get my daughter to read, which is a mission in itself.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because my patience level is completely diminished by then. So I have a lot less patience for my daughter when it comes to her homework, her reading, or whatever it is that needs to be done at home. And before having kids, even then it was hard. But what I do stress, and one thing I live by, is that you're most productive at the beginning of a day.
Yeah.
People say to me, because I posted a video as well where I wake up at 4 to go to the gym, and they say, how can you possibly wake up? You used to come with me if you remember, we used to walk around the area, and it was pitch black outside.
The routine was we meet at the gym at 4:15 or something, 4:30. We
train to about 5:10.
We do weights.
And then go for a 20 or so minute walk around the area. We'd get the protein shake from our favorite place.
Yep.
And I'd get home at about 6 o'clock, giving me enough time to quickly have a shower, do what I need to do, and get to work between, I guess, 6:30 and 7.
See, the funny thing was I would then go to my other gym, shower, and then go straight to work. And because the cleaners showed up at 5 o'clock, which is crazy, I would show up at work at 5.
Shout out to school cleaners.
Yeah, 5:30, I'm there. And then, starting.
The thing I can't, going back to my point earlier, there are so many things that a teacher has to do, or they're expected to do, that doesn't need to be done.
I agree, 100%.
Now, data analysis being one of them. I'm going to say this. This is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. I think we're collecting far too much data. We're having data for every assessment. Well, I think we do too many assessments. Did you know this? And this is true. In Finland, I believe it's Finland, they don't do any formal exams until, I want to say, high school or even year 10.
Formal exams.
Yeah, in primary, in Australia, we've got obviously the state mandated assessment of NAPLAN. But not only that, most of us have every couple of weeks a maths test based on a topic we've covered, writing assessments, vocab assessments, fluency assessments, spelling assessments, and these are all formal. When I have parent-teacher interviews and the parent says to me, what can I do with my child at home? I'm not bringing up all the data. You know what I'm telling them to do? What do you think?
I'm from
one thing.
From what I know from you, probably getting the kids to read practice their times tables.
That's it.
Reading. Yeah.
Exposing children, this is obviously for English, to a range of text types, expanding their vocab through reading. I was a horrible speller growing up. And when I say growing up, I mean in primary school. I had horrible spelling. It wasn't until I started reading regularly, and albeit they were Goosebump books. If you remember Goosebumps, R.L. Stein, I was reading them every night. My spelling increased significantly. Not only did my spelling increase, my comprehension, my fluency, everything increased.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm trying to get at is we're looking at so much data, we're analyzing it under a microscope, when in reality, simplicity is always best. And simplicity for English comes down to reading, to the range of texts that your child is being exposed to, the vocab, T1 through T3 words. And for mathematics is your knowledge of multiplication and obviously addition, repeated addition, multiplication, hand in hand. That to me, for a primary school, is the foundation of whether or not a child will be successful in the classroom environment. Now, you could disagree with me, but I'm talking through years of experience.
Do you think then the problem is too many assessments? Is
Too
that
many
it?
assessments, and we are analyzing almost everything. I remember last year, at the end of last year, week 9, mate, this is week 9, term 4. Week 9, term 4.
That's crazy.
The teachers have switched off. Yeah, I was being asked, you need to do a vocab assessment.
Really?
These are separate. Listen to this. Vocab assessment, fluency assessment, spelling assessment, and then we had to get the students to go onto an app called Essential Assessment for reading and writing and Essential Assessment for mathematics. Imagine a child in term 4, all for what? For us to collect all this data that the following year's teacher is not going to look at, because your greatest asset as a teacher, the greatest asset for any teacher is their ability to use their teacher judgment, to
Agreed.
understand what a child needs.
Yep.
And I'll always go back. The most improvements that I've seen any child make in 15 years of teaching was made through constant practice of multiplication, friends of 10 as well, friends of 20, 30, as well as reading a range of text and text types. That's where their improvements were shown. So why is a teacher is expected to do all that? Why?
Crazy.
To tick off a few boxes.
Tick off a few boxes. So then my question to you will be this. What assessments are essential? NAPLAN?
Well, NAPLAN, look, NAPLAN, I don't want to ruffle too many feathers. I agree with it to a certain extent to show how your school is performing against other schools that are statistically similar or other schools across the state. I can see the benefit because then you have funding so that's how the government decides what schools get what funding. I can see that. But I have never looked at NAPLAN in particular.
Really?
Oh, let me finish.
Okay.
I have never looked at NAPLAN in particular and said to myself, this child needs this child needs that, because that's what NAPLAN says. I use my teacher judgment.
Yeah.
And I use my teacher judgment and what I know the child is capable of based on what they've shown me in the classroom under non-stressful situations like NAPLAN, because the childs, they stress out when it comes to NAPLAN.
Interesting. I have a very different take on that.
Go ahead.
I mean, I wholeheartedly believe I can accept that perspective for English, but for maths, I do believe that written test is the best way to do it. And I get it.
Because maths is a lot more procedural, no?
Maths is a lot more procedural, but I think, there's a more push for conceptual understanding. But really, the best way to know
rote
if
learning.
a student, it's rote learning, but procedural.
I agree with you.
Now, the thing is this, I think I take your point that it doesn't have to be so formal all the time, right? It could be, here's an in-class worksheet or whatever it is that you're doing. I'll collect it at the end of the lesson, and
But it doesn't even need, it could be, all right, we're up to the independent part of the lesson where we're adding and subtracting 3-digit numbers. These are the questions that I want you to answer. Do them in your book. I'll check them. That's it. What an assessment is doing is essentially regurgitating the exact same thing that the child has already shown they can do, but in test conditions. Why? You're doing the same thing. Now, what the argument would be is, yes, we want to see if a child has retained that information, but the syllabus is now made so that there are a lot of opportunities for students to not only learn new concepts, but to revisit those concepts so that they can retain that knowledge. So there's no longer a need to constantly do an assessment, particularly, look, for maths, I actually agree with you to a certain extent. Maths is a certain, strand or a subject area that you do need a lot of practice.
There's 3 strands.
Yeah, you do need a lot of practice.
Yeah. It's way too complicated. And I think that's adding to the stresses in the workload, right? I think breaking things down as teachers and making it as simple as possible is the best way to managing work.
That's what I'm trying to get to. We are making everything too complicated, and I've often said teaching has become too complicated. We are putting everything under the microscope, but we aren't actually giving a child or students the opportunity to actually invest time into what we're teaching them. But I do think in primary, we have to simplify our teaching process and what we're teaching, the content that we're teaching.
Just make it as simple as possible. My go-to is always review what we learned before. I do, we do, you do, reflection. Every single lesson.
Spelling aside, for writing, what would you say elements of writing that are a must that we have to teach that most students don't actually know? What do you think? And I do this, and you should know this because I've told you the first English lesson I do at the start of every single year is what? I don't know if you remember this, but
I don't remember. But so you're talking specifically writing.
yes,
I would start a writing. Are we talking about writing cycle?
just before I even look at a program.
Before you look at a pro, you want to know where the kids are at.
Okay, what's my first lesson?
Let them write. No? What is it?
Well, let them write, I guess, in
Yeah.
some instance. Do they know what a simple sentence is? Do they know what a compound sentence is? Do they know what a complex sentence is? Do they know what a sentence actually is? Do they know that a sentence contains a noun and a verb?
But you're,
Because you're stripping it right back to you're simplifying it
Agree.
as best as you can, right? Does a child actually, if I were to go starting this new school year and I ask my class, what's a sentence? What do you think they're going to answer?
a bunch of words.
A bunch of words that are describing. You have fancy words,
Yeah.
and you make it long. No, a sentence. Do you know what the shortest sentence in the English language is?
I am.
I am, right? That's a sentence. If I were to go to my class and say, do you guys know that I am is a sentence? They'll be, what? No, as if it's too short.
Yeah.
Because straight away they put long or length of writing with sentences together.
Yeah.
So I'm talking going back to the simple, to the foundation, to the basics. Can they identify a range of sentence types?
Yeah.
And then we can start talking. So that has to be the foundation, and that has to be drilled in, year out. Okay.
Yep.
Deciphering a simple, complex, and compound. Then we can start talking about adverbials and adjectivals and prepositional
Yes.
phrases. I worked very closely with Joanne Rossbridge, who I put her on a pedestal. I think she's absolutely fantastic. I think I learned so much from her. She has a website. Check it out, joannerossbridge.com.
I think I sat in with one of the PLs when I was on crack. Yeah.
And she was huge, and I'm still to this day huge on field, tenor, mode, and purpose. Every text I teach, any unit I teach using whatever text, whatever mentor text, even when they're reading quietly, independent reading, do they know what the subject of the text is? Do they know who the audience is? Is it written like? Is it spoken like? Is it informal, formal?
Yeah.
Do they know the purpose?
Absolutely.
You'd be so surprised at how many don't, because they would say it, Goosebumps, it's to entertain. Why is it to entertain? But they can't tell me because of the language features, because of the characters, or because of the made up scenarios, because it's creative. They can't tell you that. Yeah. And that to me is a genuine issue, because we're forcing so many concepts down their throats that we're not providing them with an opportunity to really hone in on the basics of English. Because our English results, if you look at NAPLAN, I mean, they're not flash, right?
Yeah.
Comparatively speaking, we're not fantastic. And that Finland is ranked, I think, number 1 country in the world in terms of education. If not number 1, definitely top 3 in English.
China's up there.
Yeah, China would be up there.
Yeah.
And I'd be hard pressed to find a teacher in Finland that doesn't teach the basics of English as well as that.
And it applies with maths as well, because I know I teach maths extension for year 6. So the very upper echelon of the primary cohort. And I will go back to kindergarten, year 1 concepts with that class. You have to.
Because it's like you used to train with me. So for those who don't know, he used to come with me to the gym. The very first time you trained with me at the gym, did I start you off and say, go lift 120 kilos? No, I started you off light. But does that mean just because now you're working at 120 kilos that you completely forget the basics? No, you're still focusing on form, on the basics of that skill. I played cricket for much of my life. And I remember in 2016, I had a year where I completely forgot how to bowl. So I was a fast bowler. I completely forgot because I had lost my ability to do the basics correctly.
Yep.
I've been doing it up until that point for 30 years. And all of a sudden, I can't bowl anymore. I couldn't land the ball on the pitch because I wasn't focusing on the basics, getting my left arm driving through, making sure my arm was pointed, where it needed to be pointed. I couldn't do that because the basics I had forgotten about. And it's no different to teaching. It's no different to primary school, where we are forgetting about the basics, where we're overlooking them and we're focusing on far too complex concepts. And students are
not
suffering.
just for the students, but as teachers as well.
Exactly.
The PLs that we've been doing, too many big ideas. I think just going back to basics, I go back to this all the time. Just the I do, we do, you do model is just so
100%.
fantastic.
And that's where, going back to my point about workload, this is what my point. You go onto social media Everyone has a different idea about how you should be teaching something, right? Yeah, you want to teach writing, do it this way. You want to teach reading, do it this way. You want to manage your class, do it this way. This idea, this idea, resource this, resource that. Where's the simplicity?
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And by keeping it simple is by teaching the basics really well. Quality over quantity. It's the oldest saying in the book, quality over quantity, because if there are any high school teachers listening, they'll tell you that the students are coming to year 7 or they go into year 7, they can't even write a simple or complex sentence. They can't read texts that are being given to them because we're basically trying to get to the top level, but completely forgetting about the building blocks to get to that top level.
Teachers feel pressure to hit that top
exactly,
level things,
and
right?
that comes to workload.
Yeah.
We feel that pressure. And that goes back to the syllabus. What content are we teaching? Is it too complicated?
And I think as teachers, a good teacher is to break down the syllabus and know, hey, these are the things I'm going to call or touch upon later in the year.
Exactly. I choose the content points that I know my children need to be successful to when they get to the following year. And then I'll take aside the students who are ready to access those content points and I'll give them I'll give them tasks that address those content points. But Monty can't write a simple sentence. I'm asking him to write a complex sentence using adverbials and adjectivals.
Impossible. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
Monty is struggling to read level 13, but here is a mentor text that's easily targeted for a level 30 plus. You start from the bottom, you work your way up. I think what we're doing is we're starting from the top and we're working our way down. You start from the bottom and you work your way up.
And keeping it simple makes it easy for us to program. Keep it so much easier. Just this is the structure, throw it in, done.
Exactly right. And that also comes down to, and I think data analysis plays a part in this because we're analyzing so much data. We're putting so much of it under the microscope that we think we have to do these things. Because if you look at not just NAPLAN, you remember check-in assessment, and you were really good at this. Like you would analyze that. I remember you analyzing data to the T. And I'd look at it, I'm like, mate, you're reading far too much into this.
You think so?
I think so.
I thought I liked it.
You did well. I'm not saying you didn't do well. I said for you as a person, for your health, your well-being, I think you're reading too much into it.
For that, yeah, reading too much into it. But I'm a very detail-oriented person.
You didn't need to be.
You didn't think so? You don't think so?
I don't.
I'm a very.
I would get the same results by teaching the simple concepts really well, without having to look at or having to completely analyze data. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be analyzing data, but what I am saying is we're analyzing far too much data and we're reading too much into it.
I think the year that you were talking about, that was the year where it was my first year of teaching and the check-in results weren't very, very good. And I set a target for myself. I think I averaged that class average was like in the 30%, which is ridiculous. And I think out of all I was a very competitive person.
So you did it. No, hang on. So here's the thing. Are you doing it to feed your ego because you're competitive and you want to be the best? Or were you doing it with the genuine best interests of what the children needed?
I'll be honest. I think a lot of it, I mean, it can still benefit each other. But I think the motivator was I wanted to do well as a teacher compared to the other classes, right? I didn't get a handful of gifted and talented students. I don't think they did that for me. Because it was my first year out of uni. I think they picked the classes very, very carefully. But the first check-in assessment was term 1, and I got like 34% average.
I remember that. Yeah, I was
distraught. I was distraught.
He was on the verge of crying. I remember him coming to. He was on the verge of crying.
I was like, "What happened?" I was like shocked. This was term 1, right? I don't know what was going on. So I was like, I'm going to use this to drive myself. And since I'm just a naturally competitive person, I put a lot more focus on guided reading and modeled reading. And by
reading, right? Yep. Okay.
So by term 3, I do believe it was term 3 check-in, late term 3 or early term 4.
There was a massive increase.
There was a massive increase.
Over 50%.
Out of all the mainstream classes, actually came the second highest score.
I did make a video that ruffled a lot of feathers where I said that the people who are making these decisions have not been in a classroom for an extended period.
Very true.
I think the people who should be making these decisions are the people who are in the classrooms with the students.
And developing ideas that are sustainable. I think sustainability is one thing. I remember on prac, I would develop these really elaborate lessons. You remember these lessons? They were like, I would use technology, I use Jamboard, I try and make things very, very hands-on, very, very fun. I would actually say that my lessons in terms of the engagement levels and the things that were involved are better back then on prac than it is now within my own practice. However, you were actually discouraging me. So you were saying, look, this is actually sustainable. And I felt that because as soon as I did full days, I started to really feel like I got home and I was so tired. So that's why I believe that, focusing on the basics is very, very important.
It is. I honestly believe for you, any decision maker, whether you're creating the syllabus, whether you're implementing a program in a classroom, it cannot be done without full guidance of a current classroom teacher. It cannot be done by someone who was in the classroom 10, 15, 20 years ago. It needs to be done by someone who is a current full-time classroom teacher, not 2 days a week, not 3 days a week, a full-time classroom who does it day in, day out. They are the ones who are going to provide you with the most valuable information and resources needed to ensure that a program is not just done for the sake of being done, but is successful in its implementation. And the issue right now is far too many experts, and credit to them, knowledgeable in their field, but out of date with current teaching practices. In the growing world, the children are completely different.
Very different.
How they learn is different. What they need to learn is completely different.
Their attention span's different. Absolutely.
And the reason I say full guidance is they should be providing much of the input. Now, you're not picking a random full-time classroom teacher. Of course, you're talking about a highly competent teacher, a highly accomplished teacher, let's say. But you cannot make those decisions without taking that into consideration. And right now, the issue is most of the people making those decisions haven't been in the classroom for a long time.
Agreed.
And that's where the workload is. That's literally tied into workload. You think this is what we need. You think this is what students need. But ask any teacher. They've constantly, like every teacher strike. What are they talking about? Workload, workload, workload. Why is workload still on an increase?
Yeah.
Listen to the teachers, because this is why we're losing so many. Just like we want our students' voices to be heard, we need our teacher voices to be heard. We are so passionate. And look at the way I'm speaking. I'm so passionate about education.
Absolutely.
But why is it that not just my voice, but the voice of so many teachers they're falling on deaf ears because workload has not yet been reduced? It's not.
It's getting worse.
Report writing, for example. I'm under the belief, I don't think any teacher should have to write a report comment except for a general comment. Why? When it comes to report writing season, a general comment, 750 characters, that should be enough. Each child, one general comment. The grades of mathematics, the grades of English, the grades of history, other KLAs should speak for themselves. Why do I need to write what I've already told you that your child can and can't do as part of their grades? As a parent, my daughter came home last year, gave me her report. I didn't read the comment.
No,
I read the general.
Same.
I read the
it
general.
for my nephew.
Yep. All I looked at for maths and English and other KLAs was working at, below, or above. That's it.
That's all it is.
So there's one thing you could cut off already, right? Because I know that it's up to principal's discretion if we want to have how long we want the English and the maths comment to be. There shouldn't be. That's one thing you could cut off, take it away from the teacher. The teacher's a lot less stressed because all they have to worry about now is writing a general comment and giving out the grades. Already you've alleviated a lot of that pressure, but it's not being done.
It's not being done. And I think a happy teacher creates happy students.
Exactly.
And I think getting a teacher to come in that's not stressed, that's not overwhelmed through those systemic changes is the best way to actually keep the teachers around and not having such a high leave rate, for the teachers. And that's the best way.
And let's talk assessments. Check-in assessments, albeit year 4 and year 6 essentially do the check-ins. Then we've got NAPLAN.
Yep.
Okay, those are enough. One assessment a term that covers reading and comprehension, one assessment that covers mathematical concepts through problem solving and understanding.
Okay,
that's
one.
it.
You think one is enough for maths?
You're saying it like in that whole term, we're not looking at 100 work samples every week. You've got to understand, when I say we're doing one assessment a term for maths, that's not disregarding the week's worth of work in their books, the tangibles that I have in front of me. It's still there. I'm still using that.
Would you assess by concept or would you assess timely, duration-wise?
Concept.
So that's why I'm like a whole term, because we wouldn't spend 10 weeks on a whole topic.
No. I see what you're saying. No. I mean an assessment that covers concepts that we've taught during the course of the term.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you still have those work samples.
Yeah, 100%.
And all of a sudden, I'm not, and I know there are teachers out there, I'm no longer looking at work samples when it comes to report writing. I'm just looking at assessments now to give a grade. So I'm essentially undermining every child's hard work that they spend so much time when they're doing their work in their books because their assessment, I'm literally just looking at their assessment because there are so many and because it's expected that a teacher essentially uses the weight of an assessment as the predominant factor when they're grading their reports.
Well, that's why teacher judgment is so important, right?
But my argument is teacher judgment has been taken away.
You think so?
I do.
Yeah, true.
I think teacher judgment has been completely taken away.
But don't you think that parents may add to that pressure in that they get a grade on their report and they'll be coming to ask you, why did my child get
work
that
samples? Here's your work samples.
Right, makes sense.
Here's the assessment we did in term 1. Here's the one we did in term 2. Not the one we did in term 1 week 2, term 1 week 4, term 1 week 4, week 6. Not the fluency. Here's their work samples.
Interesting.
And constant conversations with the parent. Now, if a
Of
child's
course.
working below expectations, it's expected that you as a teacher, you reach out to the parent and you let them know, look, these are my concerns, because no parent should ever read their child's report and say limited or basic and be surprised. They should know beforehand. So there's a lot of things that we already do as teachers to ensure that a parent isn't surprised and a parent doesn't constantly question the grades.
Yep.
There are a lot of other factors. It's not predominantly assessments. So you take out assessments, unnecessary assessments, you take out unnecessary comments in report writing, you've already taken a lot of that pressure off teachers.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want as a parent, because I'm spending my Saturdays, my Sundays, my afternoons during report writing, not playing with my children, not reading with my daughter, but writing comments. And not only writing comments, but being told, I've got to write it a certain way. I've got to do this. Fair enough. It's got to be grammatically correct. I get it. But every time I receive a report comment, can we make sure we're not using this phrase or we're using capital letters for this, but not this? So I'll fix it. And then the next semester comes. Can you go back to how it was beforehand? No. I know I said in semester 1 week, it's changing constantly.
It's too complicated.
It is.
Yeah.
And a parent's not going to read it and say, they used a capital M for mathematics or whatever. And I get you've got to be professional about it, but I think it's become far too scrutinized. I think so much is expected. Have you seen the report writing guide? I mean, there's a couple pages worth of documents of what you can and can't write in a report.
Yeah.
That's
ridiculous.
pressure.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So we've talked about systemic things that maybe need to be changed, right? Perhaps assessments, things at a school-based level that could be changed. How can we as teachers manage that workload? Mindset. Look, you asked me at the start of this episode what I do, and I said abruptly, I don't know. I think, look, for me, it is all about mindset. I think going in with a positive mind frame makes all the difference. And I think for me, it's healthy eating and exercise that allows me to manage the stress of teaching. And I'm a strong believer, if you're not looking after your physical health, absolutely,
everything else sort of deteriorates. And I think as soon as I started watching what I eat, going to the gym regularly, it became a lot easier for me to manage the stresses of teaching.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't have to be heavy training every
No, it
single
doesn't.
day.
But it shouldn't. Like, you go into a staff room, what do you see? You see lollies, you see cakes, you see snacks. And it's not the fault of the teacher. They're stressed. When we're stressed, we like to eat sugary snacks. But even something as simple as making sure a staff room is conducive to healthy eating. Because a staff room, I mean, there's always cakes, there's always pizza, snacks.
Yeah.
Well, that's not helping.
So let's say there's a teacher out there who wants to get active, want to feel and have more energy. We're not telling them to, go straight in and do an hour of hard work every single day.
No, of course not. It could be a simple walk in the morning.
Absolutely.
And it could be pre-preparing your lunches. So making sure that you actually have meals. Now, it's hard to find time, but there's nothing to stop you from eating, whilst the children are coming back from recess. Let's say they get 5 minutes, 10 minutes quiet reading, quickly eating your lunch, but making sure that you are eating adequately, that you are doing some form of exercise either before or after school.
Something that's underrated, playing with the kids during break.
100%. I get so much of my exercise during recess and lunch playing either basketball or soccer.
I love soccer. Just play it all the time.
So I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I knew that okay, I'm going to get into it. Firstly, it makes the duty go a little bit faster.
Yes, it does.
And secondly, you're getting your exercise.
It's funny because for one of the schools that I worked at, by the end, every single one of my duties was a grass area duty because they knew I loved playing soccer. And because of that, the kids feed off of that as well. So the behavior was better on grass and I enjoyed myself and, under the sun, it was just a great time.
There's so many things that we can look at or we should be looking at, because we often speak about teacher well-being and how can we look after a teacher's well-being. And I can honestly say to you, it's not a coffee cart.
No.
It's not a day off from duties or a day off from meetings. It's longevity and it's sustainability, and that starts with workload and removing things that serve no purpose or little purpose, and replacing them with initiatives and that actually support a teacher's well-being. That to me is looking after a teacher's well-being. If I decided to become principal and the issue of teacher well-being is brought up, I'm not sitting and saying, well, can we get some free coffee? I'm saying, all right, let's look at all the workload. What do teachers actually need to do first and foremost?
Yep.
How can we make sure that we're still achieving an outcome without all the purposeless, I guess, bit of workload that a teacher needs to do? That to me is teacher well-being. Teacher well-being is how you feel on a Sunday night about Monday morning. That to me is teacher well-being. How do you feel on a Sunday night about having to go to work on a Monday morning? If your teachers are dreading going to work on a Monday morning, then perhaps teacher well-being is not being looked after the way it should be.
And I think another point to add to that, if there's a school and the time difference between when a concern is brought up by a teacher and the solution being dealt with, let's say by a leader, that time is crucial for teacher well-being.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
That to me is a huge thing. If a teacher brings up a concern, can I walk straight into the principal's? We've worked at a school where we could walk straight into the principal's office straight after school.
I saw that principal on Sunday, and I actually said to her, without saying her name, you are by far the most fantastic principal I've ever worked with, because to this day, I speak to her almost like an older sister. I could go into her office, literally just talk about anything. That to me, that's teacher well-being.
That is teacher well-being.
That's teacher well-being.
After school, if the principal wasn't available, deputy principal. If the deputy principal wasn't available, I'm going to the assistant
And on
principal.
the other hand, I've worked with principals who I felt anxiety and fear walking into their office.
Yeah.
So teacher well-being in a nutshell is much more than coffee carts and duty-free days or weeks. It's sustainability. It's allowing a teacher the opportunity for work-life balance. Not just saying we're all about work-life balance, but actually putting initiatives in place, alleviating some of that pressure to ensure that they can, in fact, have that positive work-life balance.
And when they're happy, they go home, they can do whatever they want, get their health checked in, and everything's good.
And a happy teacher equals happy students. Thank you so much for listening to our episode of The Complete Podcast. Plenty more to come. Thank you again, Kevin, for being on. We're very much looking forward to hearing from you or for you guys to listen to us on our very next episode.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. That was a good one, man.